Just filling.
Yeah. Just filling. All right.
Play it. Play it.
No. Scrapping everything. We're just the 5 chords. Just the same thing over and over again. All right.
What? They won't. They might. I mean, if it's that good, you know you gotta hit. That's what that
Good evening, everyone. I'd like everybody to take a seat so we can get the meeting started. I'll begin today's meeting by asking Vice President Wayne Walker to make a general announcement for our guests.
Thank you, Madam President Wilkerson. I would like to thank everyone for coming tonight. You inspire us. You remind us that the shoulders of the quality of our one great system of schools is not just on the board's shoulders, but also on the shoulders of all of us as one community, and we thank you for that. At every Board of Education meeting, a representative from the Deaf Hearing Communication Center is here to provide sign language interpretation of the proceedings. Representatives from the Office of Family and Community Engagement are stationed in the lobby to help with interpretation services. The proceedings of this meeting are being streamed live on the internet at www.philasd.org/live and can be seen on PSTV's Comcast Channel 52 and Verizon Fios Channel 20. The proceedings are also being recorded by the School District of Philadelphia. The school district's recordings are protected by the copyright laws of the United States and may not be used in any manner without the written express consent of the school district. By participating in tonight's meetings, members of the public acknowledge that the school district may use the recordings for any purpose without obtaining permission or paying any compensation. Thank you again for coming today.
Thank you, Vice President Walker. Before we get started, I just want to comment on the video that was playing as we were entering the auditorium. The video is part of the district's Did You Know video series, and its focuses on the school district's graduate and Rhodes Scholar Hazim Hardiman. Since 2015, there have been 4 school district of Philadelphia graduates that have gone on to become prestigious Rhodes Scholars, which is an international postgraduate award for students to study at the University of Oxford. I think it's important to highlight and spread the word about the great things going on in our district, which is why I'm excited about the Did You Know series and look forward to sharing these videos with you before our meetings. I hope you can share them as well. We'll now have a student performance by the talented students at Central High School. They're directed by Jason Chung. Please join me in welcoming the Central High Jazz Combo. Great job. Thank you so much, Wanda. Congratulate you for a wonderful performance, and also your director. Is that Jason Chung. I'm sorry. We'll begin our regular business meeting with roll call. Ms. Rauch, please make an announcement about the board's executive sessions and then call the roll.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to announce that the Board of Education met this afternoon prior to the public meeting to discuss personnel and employment matters, labor relations issues, information or strategy in connection with the following proceedings: Henry versus School District of Philadelphia, United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, 19-CV-115, involving claims of discrimination stemming from alleged assault of one student by another student. School District of Philadelphia versus Post, United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, 15-CV-4501, alleging discrimination and denial of a free, appropriate public education. This next one is long. Antonia Pantoja Charter School, Esperanza Academy Charter School, Eugenio Maria de Hostos Charter School, John B. Stetson Charter School, Alny Charter High School, Aspira Bilingual Cyber Charter School, Esperanza Cyber Charter School, Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School versus Pennsylvania Department of Education, Secretary of Education Pedro Rivera, and School District of Philadelphia in the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court, 167 MD 2019, involving calculation of the per pupil rate the school district pays to these petitioning schools, and alleging the charter schools have the right to be paid with district operating, to include district operated school federal funds in the charter rate calculation. And the last is in the matter of the employees of Philadelphia School District, PIRA-U-19-24-E. This is an administrative action under the Public Employee Relations Act initiated by CASA for unit clarification. Now for the roll call. Ms. Danzy?
Present.
Ms. Ahia Hinton?
Present.
Ms. Fix Lopez?
Present.
Mr. Huang?
Present.
Dr. McColgan?
Present.
Dr. McGinley?
Present.
Dr. McIver?
Present.
Vice President Walker?
Present.
President Wilkerson?
Present.
Dr. Haidt?
Present.
Ms. Frank?
Present.
And Mr. Pratico?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, before we proceed, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 28th action meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes say yes.
Yes.
Thank you. The action meeting minutes are approved. Dr. Haidt, do you have opening remarks for us this evening?
I do, and good afternoon, and thank you, President Wilkerson and members of the board. Before I begin my remarks, can we once again recognize the impressive student musicians from Central High School Jazz Combo? They're in the back. And I have to say, they can't do this without their talented director, Jason Chung. Jason, thank you as well. It's a great performance. So tonight we will present our lump sum budget for fiscal year 2020 to the Board of Education. In a few minutes, Ori Monson and I, Ori is the district's chief financial officer, will walk everyone through the presentation that outlines our lump sum statement and 5-year financial plan. But before we get into the presentation, I just wanted to thank everyone who has worked hard over the past few years to ensure our students are equipped to succeed. There were times that we had to make difficult decisions which were painful for some school communities, for many school communities. But we had a vision of what our schools could be, and we knew what our students deserved. So, to get closer to achieving this vision, we knew we had to make a series of choices and investments, and it wasn't always easy. But we did all this because we knew the end goal for the students and families we serve was, and still is, worth it. Now, those choices and investments are paying off. We're celebrating 3 years of consecutive progress since 2015. We're in a position to build upon our prior investments and focus our new priorities so we can keep this momentum going. I'll get into specifics of our progress and the budget during the presentation, but for now, I'd just like to thank all of our students all of our teachers and support staff and counselors and families who have worked with us along the way. We hope you will continue to be a part of the progress and that you share this work with anyone new to us in Philadelphia. Madam President, I also want to make a few comments on the proposed Policy 805. I think that's important, which is on the agenda for tonight. First, I'd like to begin by thanking everyone who voiced their opinion and continues to voice their opinions during the past few months about the policy, which is about how the district will respond when there is an emergency in a school. The policy includes language which identifies there will be metal detectors in every district high school. There have been metal detectors in our high schools for at least 20 years, so this issue is not new. But given today's climate, this issue is extremely relevant, and it does shed light on the fact that we need to be thinking more critically about the purpose of these devices and about how our students feel during the process of entering school each day. Just as we discuss with the budget, we have a vision for what our schools should be and what our students deserve. The intent of the metal detectors is not to treat students or even convey the message that students are intruders or unwelcome in schools, nor is it to criminalize students or criminalize the device towards students or make them feel as though they're entering a prison, not a school. The intent is, however, to provide safeguards against and discourage those who may want to bring harm to our students or staff. I support Policy 805 because as a school district, we have a responsibility to ensure the safety of every student and staff member who enters our schools. Just like the buzz-in or two-way camera systems at all of our K-8 schools, metal detectors are intended to keep everyone in the building safe. Students and staff must know there are intentional levels of protection in their schools that they can rely on. But regardless of the outcome of tonight's vote, our goal is to create safer, more caring learning environments for students that don't marginalize them or make them feel unsupported. We go through metal detectors at sporting events, at amusement parks, and we don't necessarily feel criminalized. We need to construct the same feeling in our schools, regardless of where those schools are located. We must ensure equity in the administration of metal detectors across the district. Each student, regardless of where they live or attend school in the city, should feel welcomed and wanted when they step foot inside our schools. But in hearing the comments students have made about this topic, it's clear there's a great disparity about how these devices are used and how they make children at some schools feel versus children at other schools. Some students don't feel mistreated at all, while others feel these devices are weaponized or they are criminalized when they enter school. And that just simply is not right. We're going to do work over the summer to retrain everyone who's manning these devices, because it's incumbent upon us, the adults who serve these students, to make sure our students feel valued and ultimately become the active learners we want them to be. We are focused on this work right now, and also as we consider updates to another policy, 817, which specifically addresses metal detector use in our schools. Again, I want to thank everyone who weighed in on Policy 805, especially our students. We really appreciated getting to hear your voices in this conversation, because you inform our work and are the reason we do what we do. And I'd like to also thank many of the parents and community members and advocates and educators who have shared their thoughts as well. Thank you for the care around safety of the students and staff in our schools. Madam President, this concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Height. Are there any questions for Dr. Height? Mr. McGinley, Dr.
Height,
McGinley?
I heard you talk about closing the disparity and eliminating the differences between what our students, particularly our high school students, experience as they come into school each morning. And I know that the training is not all designed, but what are the things that you intend to remedy with that type of training?
Yeah, I intend to remedy the things that we heard from students. Like some students have indicated that they're made to empty pockets, or they're asked to do things as they're coming into schools that we have no business asking students to do. And in addition, I want to remedy other things that we've heard, like students who arrive late but then are locked out for the entire first period. I mean, all of those things have been a byproduct of these types of conversations, and we have to make sure that we are implementing these things equitably around the school district of Philadelphia, so that children entering one school have one experience versus children who are entering schools in other places. And so those are the types of things that we want to talk about. Also, I think this is a broader conversation about how we collectively as adults greet children and greet young people who are entering our school buildings each morning, and how we engage them in conversations, not just talking about what they have or are not supposed to have as they walk through these devices and enter their schools.
May I ask? Let me answer.
Ms. Hinton.
The question, not the question, more of a comment, but it is a question. Is there going to be an opportunity, since many of the students that I know that I've listened to, and parents and so on and so forth, on both sides of the issue, will there be an opportunity to engage students to provide feedback on what they think, how it might work?
Absolutely, and I think and this goes back to the question that Dr. McGinley just asked, and I don't know if Julian Terrell is here, but thank you, Julian. And Julian, so we had a similar issue as it was related to how some students felt individuals were treating them, particularly our school safety officers in particular, and how some were being overly aggressive towards students. And we constructed, working with that organization, although we didn't implement it as well as we could have immediately, but we've done some work on that as well. But we worked with that organization to actually talk about things that should be included in a reporting process for students who feel like they were mistreated by certain staff in schools. We think we can pull together a similar process with respect to these things, so that the voices of that organization and the students who are part of that organization are also included.
I think some of the great conversation that came out of this, both in policy committee and the community engagement and partnership committee, and I think even the Scholastic Achievement Committee, was the conversation about how we're greeting students and how the security screeners, will approach the students. And you talked a little bit already about the training that will happen, but do we have a plan in place, or are we working on a plan in place to sort of monitor that and make sure that it is happening appropriately?
Yeah, absolutely. And we found with the process that we had for reporting the events around young people who felt like people were being overly aggressive, we learned from that process that we just cannot put the guidelines in place, but we have to put protocols to actually monitor those guidelines in place. And just as we've made that information public for what could happen or where students should go in order to make those reports, we plan to do the same thing in front of all of the detection devices, so that if individuals feel mistreated, then it is a reporting process for them to be able to make those reports. And as always, those things are anonymous and could be made by anyone, and then it allows us to really address those issues where we see those things happening on a repeated basis.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Height? Seeing none. Our next item are committee reports. I'll start with Julia Frank, our student board member for this week.
Thank you, Madam President. So this month, Alfredo and I went to George Washington High School, Strawberry Mansion, and Mastery Gratz to talk to students about their school experiences. We are looking forward to meeting with more students in the coming months. We also look forward to presenting a written summary of our findings and our suggestions based on all the student feedback we've received. That being said, our time is almost up, so we just want to remind everyone that the application for new student board representatives is open until April 23rd. To qualify, students must be entering the 11th or 12th grade in a district-led or charter school in Philadelphia. They must have a GPA of 2.5 or above. They must be willing to represent their peers at Board of Education meetings and feel that it is imperative to include youth in the public education decision-making process. We encourage all of you who meet the qualifications to apply, and you can access the application on our website at philasd.org/schoolboard. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Frank? Our next report is from Finance and Facilities. Ms. Ahaya Hinton.
Good evening. I'd like to first take the opportunity to thank Rob DeBoe from the City of Philadelphia, who is their finance director, and Jackie Dunn, Chief of Staff, for attending our committee meeting on March 14th and providing an overview of the mayor's budget proposal and five-year plan. We also received a number of district reports and heard from public participants. The reports included the preliminary lump sum statement and five-year plan. Ori Munson, our Chief Financial Officer, did present the lump sum statement for fiscal year 2019 to 2020, including information on proposed investments. These investments are aligned with the district's action plan 3.0 and hope to continue the progress we have seen over recent years, which we're pretty excited about. Some of the investments include reducing the impact of leveling, new investments in special education, classroom modernization for over 141 classrooms, expanding the early literacy work to grades 4 and 5, 30 additional English learner teachers, content-specific academic coaches for ELA and math, a new Office of Career Connectedness in conjunction with the City College and career coordinators, additional nurses to mitigate the impact of nurse vacancies and absences, 25 additional teacher residents for hard-to-fill subject areas in special ed and middle school, etc. Additionally, Ori reviewed the five-year projections and key drivers of those projections. The full presentation is available on our website with materials from our meeting. We will continue to receive updates at our committee meetings, and a presentation will be provided at our meeting in April. In regards to facilities, Danielle Floyd, and I will keep this as brief as possible, Chief Operating Officer, shared information on some of our initiatives, particularly the Guaranteed Energy Savings Agreement project at Lincoln High School, Gompers Elementary School, and Conwell Middle School and its annex. In addition, we received information on the results of the request for proposals and the district's recommendation to select Johnson Controls to perform an energy audit at select locations. Tonight, the board will consider action item 18, no-cost contract and right of entry with Johnson Controls. We continue to make progress as well with our paint stabilization projects. The full presentations are all available with materials of our meeting on our website. In addition to the action item mentioned earlier, there are several other action items on tonight's agenda that were discussed briefly at our committee meeting. There are no recommendations at this point on those items. I would also like to announce that the Board of Education will hold its annual budget hearing on April 25th at 4 p.m. The hearing will take place in advance of our monthly action meeting, which is scheduled to begin at 5. Please visit our website for more information with details on the budget hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Ahaya. Are there any questions? Our next report is from Student Achievement, and that report will be given by Dr. McIver.
Thank you. At this month's meeting, our committee discussed the district's approach to multilingual curriculum and programs, briefly discussed action items, and heard from public participants. The presentation on multilingual curriculum and programs began with a brief overview of the student demographics and key data points on student placement and outcomes. The district has seen a 32% growth in the English learner EL population in the past 5 years. Currently, ELs represent 12% of the district's total student population, with a concentration of students in Learning Network 8. We learned that our EL students speak more than 117 primary languages. I wrote down a few of those languages that I don't think anyone would know where they came from. The PA state target is for EL students to exit the program in 6 years or less. To support this goal, the district has 3 English language department instruction programs. English as a second language, available in more than 200 plus schools. Dual language is available in 6 elementary schools. Newcomer programs, high schools only. In recent years, the Office of Multilingual Curriculum and Programs has focused on improving collaboration efforts between ESL and content teachers and ensuring that curriculum is driven by grade level standards. Finally, the district also shared information on other key initiatives and partnerships, including collaboration with Community College of Philadelphia, which provides high school students dual enrollment program to prepare them for post-secondary coursework. Quality Teaching for English Learners, QTEL, develops instructional practices of teachers and principals. Together is Better is a pilot program in 3 elementary schools to develop co-teaching practices and strategies that can be scaled district-wide. Seal of Biliteracy is a national recognition for bilingual and biliterate skills of graduating seniors. Middle School Summer Program for English Learners is a 4-week summer program to develop language and content knowledge. The Temple Partnership, Leadership Instruction and Family Engagement, provides strategies for co-teaching practices for teachers and strategies to improve parent-family engagement through providing ESL classes to parents. Thank you to the students from Franklin Learning Center who participated in our meeting and shared their experiences with us. Additionally, thank you to the other participants for your active engagement and suggestions to support our students that are English language learners. Really, truly, the input from the public does make a difference. The full presentation is available with materials of our meeting on our website and includes contextual information that was not presented during the meeting. Finally, the committee also discussed action items being considered this evening. There are no recommendations from the committee on action items. At next month's meeting, our committee will focus on charter school matters. Specifically, we will receive recommendations from the charter schools office on this year's renewal cohort.
Thank you, Dr. McIver. Are there any questions? Our next report is from our Partnership and Community Engagement Committee, and Dr. Danzy.
Thank you. First, I want to talk about our meeting that we had on the 21st at the Lucian Blackwell Community Center, and I want to thank everyone here who came out and participated. And if there's anyone here from PHA, I really want to thank them for the great partnership that we had in pulling that together and making it a great thing. And if Mama Gail is anywhere around, I want her to know how much we appreciate her efforts because she was quite instrumental in getting people in the community to come. And so this meeting was really good because it didn't just have advocates and persons who are contractors with us, but it had parents, it had users of the school in terms of they're having a personal interest in it because of their children. And so I also want to thank our fellow board members. It's the first time in our meeting that we've been able to have the entire board to come out. They not only were present, but they did a great job in helping to facilitate the dialogue between all of the participants. And from that dialogue, which contained about 50 individuals, we had some key highlights that came out of that. One which we kind of been getting more and more of a dialogue on, and so we were aware of, that when it comes to setting the tone for a school, whether it's welcoming, whether it's comfortable, it's about the leadership of that school. And so those are things we know as we look at them that we need to work on. Some are great, some we can improve. That welcoming schools are clean and bright and colorful spaces with dedicated staff who are willing to partner with parents and family members in supporting their child's well-being. We recently went to a school where it had a beautiful mural, and even though it was one of our oldest schools, you didn't get that feeling when you walked in. It was warm, it was inviting to us. That schools must partner with parents and families to ensure consistent communication regarding their children's needs and the proper tools to support them. And as an aside, I'll say that, and we keep saying this a lot of times in our own meetings, that many parents that like to hear a little bit sometimes about what's going well with their kids, rather than just what's the problem with my child. That schools also serve as a central resource for communities. We also learned that many are not aware of what resources we have available, which means that we have to find better methodologies for how we get that information out, how we make it accessible to you, and how we help you to understand how to navigate through it. And the last point was that our individuals expressed the need for more simplified and accessible methods of communicating. One of the things we've been pushing is the family survey, the parent survey. And what has come out to us is kind of a lot of things. One, that when you have to do it, if you've got more than one child, you have to go and do it for every child individually, it becomes taxing, and many parents have said, I did it for one, I didn't do it for the rest of them. Others have said they didn't have access to the means for being able to do it, and are asking for schools to be more open, to make venues and activities where they can come in, do it, and receive the help that they. We have to remember in this city that we still have some people who are not computer literate, and also some who have problems with literacy, period. And we need to make the effort to be able to cross that span for them so that they can feel a sense of inclusion and involvement with their children. The last thing I would like to ask, are there any persons here that have been appointed to our board community advisory council? Good. There's one back there. Would you give your name? Okay. And we, we had been advertising about this before, we have now appointed that board of 13 members. They are across the city in terms of their location, and their role is to engage with their communities, to get feedback, to bring back to us, so that we are not sitting in a bubble, not only implementing policy, but doing our own assessment of how good the policy is. That we want to hear from the community as to what is your perception of how that is being done. So if any of you are involved, and it's on our website in terms of who are there, so if any of you are in those communities, do reach out, do invite them to meetings so that they may come and speak with you and hear from your voices so that we can hear your voices. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Danzy? Our last report is from our policy committee, and Dr. McCulkin, it's your turn.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Dr. Danzy. It only took me 3 months to be called doctor on this board. It took her 10.
Some of us are mere mortals.
Unlike
the doctors.
Pain in the neck, right? All right. So anyway, we had a lot of discussion at the most recent policy committee, and I was really happy that so many of you were there to participate. As you know, Action 1 on tonight's agenda includes policies that were reviewed by our committee in January. There are 10 draft policies, including the action item for consideration this evening. The policies are 111 lesson plans, 123.3 sportsmanship, which is a new policy, 211 student accident insurance, 217 graduation requirements, 304 employment of district staff, 617 administrative activity funds, 709 key entry and usage rates, 804 school day, 805 emergency preparedness, 916 volunteers. And again, I want to thank all of you who have engaged in the process of reviewing these policy drafts, either by attending our committee meetings or submitting written testimony or speaking at our last action meeting. We particularly want to thank our students and teachers who provided input and feedback to 111 lesson plans and 805 emergency preparedness. And we appreciate the thoughtful input, comments, questions, and particularly at this last Community Engagement and District Partnerships Committee, which was a very spirited discussion, very good discussion. I know my group, we had wonderful discussion. There were really some well thought out concerns, But I also, we heard a lot from, as you heard, both sides of the concerns. There were many students and parents who felt that having the metal detectors and the screening made them feel more safe, and there were others who were concerned about feeling criminalized and the way students were treated as they go through the screeners. And one of our big questions, and one of my particular concerns and questions in regard to the policy was, well, how are we going to make sure that the security officers, police, or whoever is staffing the metal detectors are trained to make sure that they are greeting people appropriately, that it's a friendly environment, that it's not the feeling that you're going through a prison metal detector as opposed to, you know, something like like you said, we go through these in airports, in many other places, and we want it to be as friendly and welcoming as possible. And so, as you've already heard from Dr. Height, one of the main concerns are standardization across all schools that have the metal detectors, and making sure that if we have this in one school, we want to have it in other schools. We want to make sure that there's equity, parity, that there is no reason to believe that there's variations in why we choose to have the screening in some schools versus others. And our goal is, as you heard, is to protect students and everyone in the building and keep them safe and deter people who want to bring weapons into a school environment from doing so. You've heard already that there is a plan in place for all staff to receive training, and we look forward to hearing more in regard to policies and procedures to make sure that all staff are following the procedures that are going to be implemented. So we know this is a very difficult topic. We know that some of our community are very passionate about their concerns, and we appreciate that, and we hear all of you. And we hope to continue to work with all of the stakeholders involved and concerned about this issue so that we can work toward the best policies and procedures for this issue. And so I want to thank you, and if we have any questions, happy to take them.
I have one question regarding, I'm sorry.
Fix Lopez.
I have one question regarding policy 111, and I apologize for not asking it before. Is there anything, it's not in this policy, is there another policy, or where do emergency lesson plans come into play? So if a teacher is unexpectedly absent, I see that we're expecting teachers to keep the lesson plans in their desks, right? So, but I'm just wondering if, is that a procedural thing, or is there a policy around that?
I had to review the actual policy. I was trying to pull it up as you were talking about it. I thought it was in the administrative procedures that a requirement to have up to 5 days of emergency lesson plan.
I thought it was mentioned in the policy as well. I have to go back and look at it. But definitely, if it's not in the policy, it's in the administrative procedures in regard to having emergency lesson plans for 5 days. That's my memory as well.
Are there any other questions for Dr. McCulkin? Any other comments from board members? With this, I'm going to take the agenda a little bit out of sequence and ask for Ori Munson, our CFO, and Dr. Height to make the presentation on the lump sum budget, and then we'll follow that with the speakers who will be speaking on items to be considered today. But I thought people might want to have this information so they can comment when they speak.
So while they get ready, it is in the administrative procedures, and it states that emergency lesson plans must be available for substitute use with a minimum of 5 days.
Thank you, Dr. Height. And Mr. Munson, showtime.
Good evening, William Height, Superintendent. No, so one of the things we want to do today is present our preliminary 5-year plan and lump sum statement, which we're required to do annually, and we wanted to share this with the Board of Education. And we're entitling this Building on Our Momentum. And I think one thing that's really important here is to tie in the investments that we've made to date and what has been a result, or the outcomes as a result of those investments, to the future investments and how we plan to build on those in order to build on our momentum. And so here's a quick overview of what I will be talking about, and then Ori, I will be doing the steady progress, the building on our momentum. Naturally, our Chief Financial Officer, Ori Monson, will talk about the financial outlook, and then I will close with a call to action. We continue to operate on a clear vision, and that clear vision is making sure that regardless of where children are in the city, they have access to a great school close to where they live, and that we operationalize that vision through a strategic plan. This is jumping. That's me doing it? Go back. Oh, yeah, that's it. Okay, great. Thought it was on candid camera or something. So we operationalize that vision with a strategic plan, and that strategic plan is our action plan, which is a roadmap. And people talk about the 100%, and the 100% is intentional because it's meant to represent every single student in the school district of Philadelphia. And we talk about college and career readiness as our first anchor goal, all children reading on grade level by the time they're 8 years old. 100% of our positions are filled by great teachers and principals and employees, and 100% of the funding we need to secure to have great schools, and we want zero deficits. So we've made investments to date around those anchor goals and in our strategic plan, and the investments to date include a series of investments around more opportunities for children to access college and career readiness opportunities. And you can see on the slide the 32 new career and technical education programs that are focused on high-demand occupations. We've also increased the advanced placement and dual enrollment courses across 18 high schools. We have the distinction of having the first middle college program in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we've provided free access to PSAT and SAT practice exams for any high school student who desires to take those. In addition, as we go to Anchor Goal 2, we have launched a 3-tiered model to transform early literacy. We started with a new curriculum that is aligned to industry and best practices and naturally state standards, increased supports for teachers, that's all of our K-3 teachers, also with the employment of literacy coaches to support every K-3 classroom, reading specialists in our acceleration network schools, and then expanding the resources as it relates to early literacy. Resources that include new books, in fact, 1 million new books for grade level libraries in all K-3 classrooms, and a total of $38 million for new K-12 literacy and math materials. And then we've also upgraded 350 classrooms with new furniture and reading spaces and created new environments in those classrooms for students. In addition, as you heard from the tremendously talented young people from Central High School this evening, we've also restored arts and music education in every elementary school. And this is instrumental music in every elementary school. And in addition, we've spent a lot of time and energy directed towards hiring more and more diverse teachers and school support staff. And in the 1,700 plus teachers and school support staff members who have been added, we've created teacher residency programs to fill those hard-to-staff positions, and we are excited and still want to improve upon 1 in every 3 teachers and 1 out of every 2 principals who are hired are educators of color, and we feel like we can still improve on that data point as well. Also increased social and emotional supports for students. We've seen a lot of information when talking with the educators in schools and in classrooms and administrators that a lot of attention needs to be provided to address the social and emotional needs that many of our children come to school with, and there needs to be the requisite supports for students. And so we now enjoy counselors and nurses supporting every school. We have a new director of trauma-informed school practices, more programs to provide behavior interventions and supports for students, and ongoing PD to support trauma-informed care. Okay, here we go. So, and finally, we've renovated and refreshed classrooms to inspire creativity, collaboration, and hands-on learning. And you can see the computer labs and then computers that we have replaced or refreshed for all of our teachers, principals, assistant principals, school secretaries, and nurses. And it's also really important to talk about the investments to date that we've made around our facilities, understanding that we still have a lot of work to do in this space. But we've added new people and have made improvements to support cleaner and healthier schools. And we've added 112 new cleaning positions to ensure more rigorous cleaning standards in all schools. Those standards have been created to support all schools and to ensure that there's one standard for how schools are cleaned. We have new state-of-the-art hydration stations in every school now. We're doing lead paint stabilization in all 30 high-priority elementary schools, and that work is projected as of the fall of 2019. And then we now have installed humidity sensors to monitor and proactively prevent mold in 31 targeted schools as well. And we will continue to do work in this space as we all advocate for more capital funding, both from the city, from the state, and from the federal government. In addition, we think that collectively, those investments to date have benefited every school in one form or fashion. And this is a slide that I am extremely proud of because it represents the work of all of the individuals who are working in schools and with their children on a day-to-day basis. For 3 years in a row now, public schools across the city have improved. And overall, the school progress report scores have increased by 9 points since 2014, 2015. In addition to that, we see that schools are improving in the areas that matter most to student success. And we have now more than half of the schools have improved their achievement scores. We have 63% of schools have improved their progress scores. 69% have improved their climate scores, and 63% of the schools serving grades 9 through 12 have improved their college and career readiness. And our students are showing progress in literacy and math across nearly all tested grade levels. And we are excited that as you look at those young people who are scoring proficient in advance in 2014, 2015 versus more recently in 17, 18, you can see the point increases in almost every category. In addition to that, our students' 3-year academic growth rates for literacy and math are outpacing the state average in nearly all the tested grade areas as well. So once again, this is a testament to the outstanding commitment that our educators are making every day in every classroom and every school to support the needs of our young people. In addition, we have more students who are in school and having college and career readiness experiences. And so we now have more children who have 0 out-of-school suspensions. Our student attendance, we have 9,000 more children attending schools 95% of the time or more. 6,700 students are now taking AP or dual enrollment classes, and 7,300 students have earned more than 14,000 industry certifications in our CTE programs. And we have more high-performing schools and fewer lower-performing schools. And in addition, it's always important to acknowledge the 2 new National Blue Ribbon schools from this past fall as well. And in addition to that, more children are graduating, and that number has been steadily rising since 14-15. And on the left-hand side of this slide, you see district and alternative education schools, and you see now that 69% of students who come from those schools are graduating, And when we just look at district schools by themselves, these are all of our high schools that do not serve alternative children who are in alternative education programs or opportunity schools. You would see that 79% of those children are graduating. So this is all information that we're proud of. We're equally proud of the fact that overall, based on our school progress report, one of the goals here is not to eliminate the plots on this graph, but instead to change those dots that all represent schools from red to orange to green and blue. And you can see the slide on the left, 14-15, represents where we were the first year of the school progress report versus more green and blue dots and fewer red dots on the right-hand side, which is school year 17-18. And all of this is happening while maintaining a strong fiscal foundation. And thanks to Ori Munson and his team, that we now have investment-grade credit rating, and that's the first time in 22 years that we've had that level. 42 years, I'm sorry. 42 years. Thank you, Ori, for Justin. Yeah. Speaking of math, yeah. So positive year-end fund balance for the 5th year in a row and no negative audit findings for the 5th consecutive year. So this all goes to say that we're proud of the progress, but we still understand that we have a lot of work to do. And we still have 20% of our schools that are at the lowest level of school performance based on our school progress report. Not enough students are performing at proficient and advanced levels still, and only 7 out of every 10 students are graduating on time. And while we're proud of the progress we've made, this slide is an indication that we still have work to do. But in order to build on that momentum, the investment plan will build on the prior investments and support new priorities to further improve our academic outcomes. And these new investments include increased supports for teachers as we want to expand our K-3 literacy model to grades 4 and 5. We also want to expand resources for students in all the 4th and 5th grade classrooms. And we have targeted another 141 classrooms across 11 targeted schools that will be upgraded for new spaces. In addition, we want to improve the curriculum as it relates to math instruction, and we want to build on a strong foundation to improve math teaching and learning. And we're going to start with addressing the curriculum, the math curriculum, and in the future years, we want to also then increase supports for teachers in the math space and expand resources for students. And that would be not in this coming year, but in future years as it relates to the budget. In addition, their new investments will include strengthening the college and career readiness supports for students. We want even more dual enrollment opportunities for our high school students. We want 10 new college and career readiness coordinators who will work in collaboration with high schools where these opportunities or these resources do not exist. New curriculum specialists for the world languages, which is a graduation requirement for us, and a new Office of Career Connectedness that will work in conjunction with what the mayor announced in his budget in terms of connecting our young people to experiences that give them a connection to the career that they may want to pursue after high school or after college. And then new resources and programming to support high school students who are off track for graduation. In addition, we want to add more services and supports in schools that help all learners succeed. And this budget will include more nurses to minimize vacancies and absences. We will also increase, or we're advocating or recommending an increase of 25 additional teacher residents for hard-to-fill subject areas. And these are in the areas of STEM, special ed, special education, and middle school. We want to reduce by 50% the number of classrooms impacted by leveling. In addition, we're going to add 30 additional English language learner teachers, special education students. We want to enhance the quality of supports available for students with disabilities. And we want more behavior health staff and counselors in schools to work with our young people on the behaviors associated with the experiences of trauma. So those are new investments in the budget as well. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ori Munson to do the legal presentation for a lump sum and a 5-year plan.
Good evening, members of the board. So first, talk about the proposed 1920 lump sum budget. And again, this is next year's budget, the 1-year budget. Highlighting the fact, and this is really a 30,000-foot look at the budget. We are projecting currently to end the current year with a positive fund balance of just under $170 million. I'm sorry, that was last year. And this year with $156.8 million. That's the middle column. Does the red light work? It does. $156.8 million there. And next year, fairly balanced. The end of fund balance for next year at just under $130 million. There are 4 major areas that are driving the growth, both in expenditures and revenue increases from 1920. There's an increase on the expenditure side, about $96 million for payments to charter schools. That's primarily driven by the increase in the per pupil rate. Talked about this before, but as we have done all the years of investments in district-operated schools and we spend more in district schools, that translates into a parallel increase in the per pupil rate for charters. There's a technical increase, and you'll see this on both sides of the expenditures and revenues. One of the proposals in the governor's budget is to shift grant funds that come under Ready to Learn grant funds, about $38 million that would come through the basic ed formula. So it's the same amount of money, but since the operating budget doesn't reflect the grant funds, this would now be reflected both $38 million on the expenditure side as well as $38 million in revenue from the state. An increase of $37 million related to salaries, primarily related to contractual increases, and a corresponding increase of $31 million for employee benefits, driven by the increase in salaries as well as a small increase in the pension rate from the state. On the revenue side, the governor's budget includes $97 million in basic education and special education funding increases. $38 million of that is the Ready to Learn shift I already referred to. There's about an increase of $64 million in projected real estate tax revenues, an increase of $33 million in the city grant to the school district, and since we're paying out increased pension payments, our pension reimbursements also go up correspondingly. Every time we present to you, or have in the past several years, or presented to the board, we want to put in the context of a 5-year plan so that everyone understands the decisions we're making and we're recommending are sustainable. It's not helpful if we invest and have to yo-yo pulling supports out. The assumptions used for a 5-year plan are reasonable projections using actual revenues and expenditures, current law, historical spending on enrollment trends, and most recent city, state, and in this case, federal budget proposals as well that have come from the mayor, the governor, and the president. The primary objectives, particularly looking at the first 2 years, the first 24 months, because we have less time to react to those if there are concerns. And really, we want to establish a baseline financial projection so that we can dialogue with all the school district funders. We don't have the ability to raise our own funds. It's very important that we can present what we see, what the projections are, what we need to get long-term structural balance, and to reiterate our credibility on how we manage public funds. So this is the preliminary 5-year plan projection. Again, the first year is consistent with the lump sum I discussed just before. I do want to point out, and it's highlighted in green, this is getting closer and closer to actually having a structurally balanced budget, which is really a goal in any public sector. For perspective, I believe 2 years ago we had projected revenue growth around 2.2% and expenditure growth over 4%. So we were double and by definition structurally imbalanced. We now, in large part due to the city increases in recurring revenues last year, as well as the governor's proposed budget, we now have projected revenues growing at about 3.1% over the life of the plan. Work we have done to make sure that we are expending funds in a responsible, efficient, and effective manner. Our expenditure growth projected by 3.4%, so we're very close to balanced. And this translates, and actually I want to point out one more thing before I move on. I mentioned the federal budget. We had actually taken out this year the reserve for federal cuts we've had in previous, last year's 5-year plan, because Title II programs supposed to be reserve actually got funded at a slightly lower level, but was funded. In the most recent budget proposed by the president, it would eliminate Title II and Title IV programs. These support a lot of the professional development, particularly around the early literacy programs, obviously programs we want to continue. So we have put in a reserve. It would not be effective because of the time in the federal budget until the fiscal year 21 budget. But if you see there's a line, I get this, right there, the 22,500,000, $22.5 million coming in 21, and that's really protection if that budget were to go through, that we can maintain those programs. So beginning in 21 and carried through the life. The fund balances, I mentioned that we would project to end fiscal year 20 at about just under $130 million positive fund balance. 21, a positive fund balance of just under $29 million. We would go negative by fiscal year 22, negative $76 million, and by the end of the plan would be negative by just under $300 million. For perspective, I believe 2 years ago we were looking at $1 billion deficit, sort of an easy headline, and even $600 or $700 million before the city made its additional revenue changes last year. So we continue progress, and I've said in the passing, there's a reason that a lot of districts don't do a 5-year plan. It's because a lot of them would show similar red in the out years. We think it's important actually to show where we are, what we believe is sustainable, and remind our funders at what point we're going to need either additional support to maintain these investments or other changes we're going to have to make a few years down the road. The timeline going forward, so obviously the lump sum vote is this evening. The next Finance and Facilities Committee meeting is on April 11th, which in addition to presentations, obviously opportunities for comment on the budget. April 25th, there's the same evening as the next board meeting. There's a budget hearing, I think it'll be just before or in conjunction with. I will add in that last year was the first time we were able to get out the detailed budget books in advance of that hearing. Our goal is to get that out again, hopefully at least a week before, get them online electronically so that everyone has the opportunity to see the detail. We're still working. We just finished the school budget process, so getting all those details in, getting them out, and getting the materials together. But again, our goal is to get it out as quickly as possible so folks who will attend the hearing can have that additional information in addition to the lump sum budget that's out. Our City Council budget hearing is scheduled for May 14th. There's the May Finance and Facilities Committee meeting is 2 days after that. And currently the board is scheduled to vote on the budget at the meeting at the end of May 30th. Hopefully the city will adopt its budget and tax measures in advance of that meeting. If not, we would have to act in June to enact the taxes in accordance with the tax measures set by the city. And I always optimistically root for state budget adoption in June before the end of the fiscal year, which did actually happen last year. So hopefully we'll choose that as setting precedent, which obviously helps us with our budgeting in case there are any changes.
As we wrap this up, I think one thing that's really important is to acknowledge that our progress to date is a result of the hard work and commitment of thousands of students, their families, our district employees, elected officials, and community members. And it is to also acknowledge, but we still have work to do. And I do think that as we talk about a call to action, not individuals who are working day to day in front of our students, but to others who have been said, so what can we do to be helpful? And we do think that there are ways that individuals can help. And individuals can either volunteer in a school. They could choose to volunteer in a school. They could also choose to adopt a school if it's a business who wants to provide support in schools, or individuals can make a donation through the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia for a particular school or a particular project that they may be interested in at a school. And so we are just ending this with everyone else. And this is how others can also be a part of our continued progress. And we're pleased to take any questions, although we do have a budget hearing coming up. So,
Are there any questions for Dr. Height or Mr. Munson? Dr. McGinley?
I don't have specific questions. I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things. The 5-year projection commitment was something that started how long ago, and was it a mandate at the time? Going out 5 years, as you mentioned.
It's not a mandate. It's actually, it had been done in different ways, but we, when I first started here, so 3 years ago, okay. We started putting everything in the context of a 5-year plan, particularly as we were trying to begin those investment programs so that everyone could understand what we were doing and our ability to sustain those investments.
And those projections represent everything we know now about future years, right?
Correct.
We're not anticipating other changes, right? So if a contract expires or something, that's not accounted for. What's in existing contracts is accounted for.
Correct. So it doesn't anticipate anything from legal changes to whatever the actual. We have to continue to revise it as there are new contracts signed. If there are whatever final budgets passed, the city, the state, federal. Mm-hmm. It's a point in time. What we know today, and obviously I view the plan and the budget and the 5-year plan as a dynamic document.
Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, Dr. Height, in addition to the ways in which you identified people could support us, is that many people who work for the school district are committed to the success of the district, but live in the suburbs. And I think it would be very helpful if people who live in the suburbs in Pennsylvania could make the needs of the district known to their elected officials who may not have had conversations about what goes on in the school.
That's a great point. Great point, Dr. McGinley. Thank you for making it.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Munson or Dr. Height? I just want you to point out to people, where can they go if they care about their school? You know, these numbers are amorphous, and they don't really help people understand what they can anticipate in their school, what kind of...
So that's exactly the information we're trying to get up as quickly as possible. That's when we will have two different documents. Actually, we'll try and do 3 documents. One document is a school-by-school guide to the budget. For a sample of it, you can see what last year's looked like. They're all up on the website for the past couple of years. Again, we literally just finished, I guess, Monday, the individual school budget. So translating that out, getting it into the system, getting the books out. But again, our goal is to get it out in advance of the budget hearing. And when we do, we'll send out a public notice that it's been out there. The second book is a detailed, basically it's the detailed version of the lump sum, which is across all departments, across all schools. So kind of looking across the district, slicing it by category, by office, by position type, across the district, as well as the capital plan, and capital plan details will be in there, and more detail on the grants spending. The third we started doing in response to actually some requests, I think last year, was sort of a 101 guide to how to read those books. So we'll put that out again to help folks out. And as soon as those are, I'll let people know. But that'll give the most detailed of what's budgeted for each school in terms of positions, funding, what the projected enrollment is, and how that compares to some prior years.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from board members? Thank you. With that, we'll turn to the public participation part of our meeting. I'd like to note that we've received written testimony as related to Policy 805 to be entered into the record of tonight's meeting from Bruce Downs, Elise Pelot of the Education Law Center, Judith Brown Danis of the Advancement Project, Micah Foster of the New Voices for Reproductive Justice, and Councilwoman Helen Ginn. And with that, Ms. Rock, would you please share our speakers policy and then call up our first 5 speakers?
Thank you, President Wilkerson. On behalf of the Board of Education, I'd like to thank you for your input on school district matters and issues, including proposed actions being discussed this evening. To respect every speaker's time, we will strictly enforce the 3-minute per speaker time limit. There's an electronic time prompt on the table. When the yellow light comes on, you'll have 30 seconds left, and when the red light comes on, your time will be up. Student speakers, elected officials, and those speaking on action items being considered tonight are prioritized on the agenda. Those speaking on general topics will address the board after completion of formal business. Up to 4 speakers will address the board on each topic. Written testimony submitted in advance of the start of this meeting will be included as part of the record of tonight's meeting. I will call 5 speakers at a time to the front of the room to be seated in the front row, and we will begin with our first speakers. Please begin to make your way up as you hear your name. Sam Shippen, who can come directly to the table, please. Charles Mitchell, Nayeli Perez, Zoe Twe, B. Ruiz, Kaya Powers, and I'm actually calling 7, Madison Richardson. These are the student speakers for this evening, if you could all come up. And if Sam could come to the table. Is Sam here? Sam Shippen? Okay, Sam's not here. Charles Mitchell?
Hi, my name is Charles Mitchell, and I am a student at the Workshop School. I'm also a member of the Philadelphia Student Union. I am here today to represent the voice of the students at Workshop School and urge decision makers here today to vote no on Policy 805. Ever since December, when the policy was first proposed, I've been attending every last school board meeting. That's because I really care about preventing problems instead of just reacting to them. As a young man of color, I am one of the people most affected by the school-to-prison pipeline. I know we can change that, and we should change that by giving students more restorative options for when a conflict occurs. We need to focus on improving students' lives and decision-making, not just reacting to our own fear of what can happen. According to the ACLU, students need less cops and more counselors. They found that children are suffering from more and more health issues, but instead of adding more counselors, schools are adding more police officers. In fact, Harold Jordan, a lawyer with the ACLU in Pennsylvania, said the emphasis is really more on criminalizing kids than getting them out of schools, rather than working with them and understanding what's behind what happened at schools. You say you listen and you publicly discussed your support and concerns. Today we will find out if you actually listen. In today's Inquirer, school board member Joyce Wilkerson is quoted, "We need to standardize things." While I understand that you want equal opportunities for all students, but not all schools are the same. Every school is unique and have different needs, different strengths, challenges, and deserves the right to see fit on how the students are greeted every day. By voting yes on this policy, you will take that away from schools and the communities they serve. Only 3 of the Philadelphia's 49 high schools do not have walk-through metal detectors. Do you know why my school chose not to use metal detectors? Trust. It's a word we use a lot in these meetings, but do you know how it feels to be trusted in a world that sees you untrustworthy? It's like being told you will never see food again and then being presented with a meal. It makes you see straight about how the world is and how it should be. To most, I sound overdramatic, but I'm speaking my truth. The culture of trust and respect at my school would be severely damaged by a metal detector and a police officer. One of the most honorable things I've heard throughout all of these meetings was something Mallory Fix-Lopez said. To get trust, you got to give some of it away. Hearing that gave me hope that maybe our school board is starting to see the bigger picture. That's not only good for me and my classmates, but the future of education. If you believe in that future, vote no on Policy 805.
Nayeli Perez, please come to the speaker's table.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nayeli Perez, a member of the Philadelphia Student Union and a senior at the Academy at Palumbo. When I was younger, I used to watch a lot of SpongeBob. So to me, metal detectors were cool gadgets that you could use at the beach to find buried treasure. The metal detectors represented opportunity. The alarm they made when something was found was exciting. It was a sound of good fortune. Then I went on an airplane. Even for someone so young, the tension at the airport was very detectable. The way people shuffled along in the line, silent and serious, was unsettling. In addition to that, having to take off my earrings, my belt, my shoes, even a couple of bobby pins in my hair, it was a little annoying, but I didn't think much of it, especially since the reason we were getting on the plane in the first place was to go to Disney World. Over the years, I've watched less and less SpongeBob and more shows and documentaries that centered around crime and prisons. Metal detectors were ubiquitous. They became synonymous with criminal activity. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting having metal detectors in institutions where convicted criminals are housed is unreasonable. What is unreasonable is placing that same level of suspicion on high school students. My first day at Palumbo, after traveling an hour and getting lost on the way there, the first thing I saw when I walked through the door was a metal detector. Immediately after, I noticed a long line of students waiting to get into school. Now, whenever the metal detector alarm goes off, it means someone didn't take their phone out of their pocket, or that someone had two calculators arranged in a way that appeared questionable, or that a microphone that I used for filming was particularly suspicious looking that day. And the sad thing is that at the time, I didn't think much of this either. It wasn't until this year that I really asked myself why metal detectors are so commonplace nowadays, and in school of all places, as if we're just criminals waiting to happen and not just kids. Touring schools every once in a while is extremely different than being a student or educator or administrator. District officials have no grasp on the environment that they'd be shattering in the name of a false sense of safety, or as Danielle Floyd puts it, consistency. We're finally at a point where restorative justice practices are being used in schools. Please don't undo all of the change that has been made. Dr. Haidt, today in the Inquirer, you were quoted saying, "I'm sure that if any of our students go to Disney World, no one feels criminalized by walking through a metal detector." Which is true. I didn't think twice about going through the metal detector. I just wanted to go to Animal Kingdom. Unlike Disney World, we're required by law to attend school. And students from 46 of the 49 schools are subjected to an unwarranted search on an almost daily basis. Board members, please don't be persuaded by this false equivalency. My main concern, though, is when does this stop? When does criminalizing young people end and uplifting us start? How far will this policy go? Middle schools? Elementary schools? How long is this false sense of safety going to outweigh the harm that metal detectors do to our school environments and our psyche? Moreover, when is the district going to invest in policies that are directly related to safety? Metal detectors are about as far removed from our idea of safety as they can get. I'm worried about the ceiling caving in my school.
Thank you.
I'm worried about... I'm worried about the mental health of my friends and my
Ms.
classmates.
Perez, I need to call the next speaker.
Spend this money on psychologists. Spend it on
Okay, yes. Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Zoe Tway to come up, please. What do you want to do? Call the next speaker? Okay, I'm sorry. Wait, thank you, sir. We have to call the next speaker. We have a lot of speakers tonight. But
Call the next speaker.
Zoe, no one can hear me. Zoe, would Zoe Twee please come to the front? I think we need to move on. Wait. Okay.
We have over 46 speakers who signed up to speak tonight. We appreciate your coming and value the contribution you've made, but out of respect to all the other people who also want to have an opportunity to speak, I ask that you yield the microphone to allow others to also share their opinions on these important issues.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Wait. Would Zoe, I don't know if it's Twee or Tway, please come to the front. And we appreciate everybody's comments, but we do have to extend courtesy to everybody who is registered to speak. So please respect the 3-minute prompt so all of your fellow students and colleagues may also have their opportunity. Thank you.
Call the next one.
Oh, she's here. You can start.
Good afternoon. My name is Zoe Twee, and I am here representing Herb Ed, the student-led nonprofit organization for student and by students. Herb Ed is an organization that advocates for school communities that work for students. We are excited to be here to represent true student voice. I'm here to talk about Policy 805, which is being revised to mandate a metal detector in every school within the district. I would like to make a statement that walking through a metal detector daily is not what every school in this district would like for their students. I appreciate that every person here understands how big of a deal this is, that they understand the weight to which their vote matters. Within this policy, we are asking you today to be on the side that does not uphold the school-to-prison pipeline. We are asking you today to be on the side that says we should be focusing on how we can improve schools in other ways, how we can expand what it means to be safe in a school for a child, that high school is a whole experience for students to not just be students but people first. We must recognize today, as said before, that each school community is unique and has unique issues, and therefore the solution should not be standardized. Instead, let's focus our time and resources on creating respectful, safe school environments with mental health support and restorative justice approaches. Today, we have an opportunity for growth. Let's prioritize students' health, restorative justice, and our resources investing in our future and in our voices. It is concerning that we have adult school board members and school district leaders proposing a new policy that can cause distrust in our schools, a policy that will cause more trauma to our students and that can cause a divide in our already divided communities. If we want to propose such disheartening policies, we must ensure we have a meeting that includes teachers, administrators, business owners, and most importantly, students. We are asking that each school has the right to decide what safety looks like for them. The right to decide that if a metal detector is what they want, that the community involved with that school has a discussion and decides that that's what's best for them. I'm tired of having things being put in our schools without having every one of those deciding discussions. So I ask today that the school board vote no on this policy, instead allowing communities, if they are in need of safety measures, to have the final say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And with all due respect,
But-
do not take it lightly that this is our city, and these are our schools.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Twe. B. Ruiz. B. Ruiz, please come to the front. Thank you.
My name is B, and I'm speaking on behalf of Youth United for Change. I'm in 12th grade, and I go to Central. Schools are meant to educate students. With students spending most of their day in class and much time at home completing homework, school is like a second home. But many things hold students back from actually getting the most out of their educational experience. From poor physical school conditions, heavy workloads, and lack of support from school staff to everything they encounter outside of school. With most students from low-income families, many students in Philadelphia are exposed to violent crime, physical and emotional trauma, and much more. Even at the expense of mental health, class time is more valued at school. Students get turned away from counselors when they're practically in tears and are told, "Come back during your lunch period." How could a student focus on their academics when they're experiencing emotional distress? Without the space to address their needs, a student may feel unsupported and pushed away, making them more reluctant to seek support in the future. And the issue not being addressed can negatively impact the student's mental health. This is why we at Youth United for Change believe the School District of Philadelphia needs mental health supports and procedures built into the everyday function of schools. Schools should not only try to educate, but build up students to reach their full potential. Students should never get turned away in time of need, and if no staff is available, they should have access to a safe space to go to until there is, allowing them to relax or regulate. All schools should make information about mental health services available to students in a way that is transparent and easily accessible. No student should feel helpless and trapped in their poor mental state. Schools should work with students, identifying particular stressors to understand how to intervene. When I was doing well academically and mentally, I felt as if school really supported me. Once my mental health started to decline, there was a lot of internal questioning for me on seeking support from a counselor. How would I be supported? Am I going to be vulnerable to a stranger and get nothing out of it? Who would they tell? When I finally decided to go, telling them I had been persistently feeling depressed and suicidal, they just listened and did nothing to help me. Over time, my mental health got worse and my grades fell fast. It took 2 years of continuous visits with different counselors through compounding hardships before I was supported to finding coping mechanisms and a therapist. As a member of YUC, I learned I'm not the only one who feels that student voices need to be heard, and the school district needs to do more to address mental health. Over a year and a half ago, we started our mental health campaign after surveying over 500 students. We recognized a major concern for students was mental health, and our members worked very hard doing research to understand mental health, how to address it, and how other places around the world are approaching solutions. We met with teachers and principals getting feedback. We've given public testimonies, created a social media challenge, and even became co-authors in the National Women's Law Center forthcoming report about mental health. Our efforts prove that something needs to be done. We are very excited to be meeting on April 2nd with Lori Pastor, the Deputy Chief of the Office of Prevention and Intervention. We will share our proposals.
Kaya Powers.
Good evening. My name is Kawia Powers. I am a 9th grade student at SLA Bieber, and I am here to discuss how metal detectors can easily affect mental health. Essentially, one of the biggest ways that people end up with mental health issues is through school. Students can develop issues such as anxiety, depression, and eating disorders. The pressure that schools sometimes overlay among students, though through excessive work can make students develop anxiety issues, which can in fact be worsened through metal detectors. People begin being put under the pressure of not only worrying about assignments that they have to turn in on time, but the fact that they have to wait in line forever just to get into school. And having to go through all the trouble to only get caught with a rat tail comb and having to get it searched in case you have something on you. When 9 times out of 10, they don't. Then you get to class and your teacher won't accept your project because it was late. People could also develop depression and eating disorders from metal detectors because of the same things as before. Before your school could even have metal detectors, you may have straight A's. But as soon as your school gets metal detectors and your assignments starting to get turned in later, you go from straight A's to D's and F's. So to feel comforted, you turn to food and start to gain weight, and you just get bigger and bigger. Then at school, you get picked on and think about weight, and then you develop depression issues. Next thing you know, you're thinking about killing yourself. All these mental health issues are the reason why we shouldn't get metal detectors. However, funding should be put towards counselors and tutors that can actually help students that could possibly develop these kinds of issues. Because even without metal detectors, students could still develop these type of mental health issues, and counselors would help students deal with these issues, and tutors would help the workload that we get just to help take off some of the pressure from school. But also, like some of you said earlier, as some of you said earlier, we need metal detectors in our schools to feel protected. Me, however, walking through school, feeling the pressure of walking through metal is not helping me at all. It's just making me feel more under pressure at school. It's making me feel conscious about the people around me when I feel trusted in my school. My school is a workshop school. We have an engineering program. People accidentally walk out with box cutters, but they come back and return them. Nothing ever happens at my school. You'll rarely ever see a fight. Our school is protected. It don't matter if it's by our principal or our teachers. We don't need these metal detectors. They're just making and causing more issues for us. As students, we need you to say no to this. We need you to say no.
Madison Richardson. And after Madison Richardson speaks, Councilwoman Helen Gim will ask you to come to the front, please. Madison, come to the front, thank you, and you can start.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Madison Richardson, and I am an 11th grade student at Science Leadership Academy at Bieber. However, before I get started, I would like to say something about the petitions that Dr. Height is passing out. At SLA Bieber, myself and other students, a part of PSU chapter meetings, organized petitions against metal detectors. In that process, we gained 394 signatures, which is 80% of our school. I'm here to discuss the criminalization shown in our school system. At my school, students expressed their ideas of safety. These students includes freedom, honesty, trust, open-minded, and more. Essentially, the education in students should be our first priority and provide preparation for adulthood and critical thinking. With that being said, the excessive funding that our school district put towards police reforms deprive these students from that. Creating a criminalized environment for these students, a student who previously graduated from Allen Charter High School stated that every day walking through those doors, he felt as if he was in prison. As the student so heartily said, "I felt as if I was a criminal. The school is a jail cell." As Greg Wendell reported, Black and Latina students are arrested by school police at a higher rate than white students. In Pennsylvania, they are 5 times more likely to be arrested. Furthermore, police in schools with large numbers of students of color are significantly more likely to have duties focused on maintaining school discipline. When should protection of students come to the expense of questioning their freedom? As follows: you become the person you are from your surroundings. If you're exposed to the nature of violence, you grow to inhibit those characteristics. However, if you're exposed to a free community of trust and stability, you will naturally show those features. Take Overborough High School, for instance. That school receives a negative connotation of students being called bad. However, those students act in which the environment they are in. Therefore, being in an environment where they have to walk through metal detectors, receive disciplinary action from the police, makes them act like criminals. The criminalization in our schools stops us from focusing on the academic of inquiry with students. Instead of having metal detectors and police officers, the school district should invest into teaching such as philosophy, psychoanalysis, and other teachings that enact how to think, not what to think. Therefore, driving students to build critical thinking skills and a wide range of academic achievement. Therefore, change the nature of our school to be more to the advantage of the success of students and end the culture of incarceration of students. Thank you.
Thank you. As Councilwoman Kim comes to the front, I'm going to also ask the next 4 speakers to come to the front, so you're ready after Councilwoman Kim is completed. Latanya Diggs-Clay, Zoe Rooney, Diane Payne, and Anna Perng. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening to our Board of Education and Superintendent Height and audience members. My name is Helen Gims, City Council member for the City of Philadelphia, and I'm proud to follow in the footsteps of these young people in this room today. I think that, the first thing I would say, and I have formally handed out my March 11th letter to the Board of Education, encouraging the board to vote no on policy 805. I think the core issue is that policy 805 should have started with student voices rather than a vote. Their voices defining and talking about emergency preparedness and safety should have led the conversation. It would be difficult to build trust about this issue if student voices follow a vote rather than precede it. And that is why I would urge you to vote no today, and then to partner with students and organizations to hold a town hall, a student town hall, on emergency preparedness and what it looks like to actually provide school communities with the safety measures that they need to have to feel truly safe in their communities. Student safety can and never will be defined by technology. When we believe that our commitment to equity has to start with guaranteeing a surveillance camera, a security officer, and metal detectors in schools, rather than starting with small class size, social workers in every school, arts and music, mentors, and after-school programs, we have misinterpreted the definition of equity. And I would like to truly acknowledge the young people in this room because they have led this movement every step of the way. That student voices and the voices that you hear in this room are the voices of students and teachers in our communities pushing you as a board to guide our schools, to push you to directly partner and envision a vision of safe schools that is beyond what we have been conditioned to respond to. And I will be working with you and with the board to increase school funding. I particularly look forward to partnering with the board to discuss how the tax abatement and other economic development policies can improve and impact school funding. And in either case, I'm here in support of the community members who are here pushing this board to do what's right. Thank you.
Latanya Diggs-Clay.
I'm a parent, and I'm sorry, I'm on the other side of what I'm about to say, but I'm sorry. So I probably get silence after what I got to say. Hello, my name is Latanya Diggs-Clay. My concern is that elementary schools are not safe. Metal detectors need to be installed to keep not only school children protected, but the school staff. It is too easy for a firearm to find its way into an elementary school. My concern stems from a recent event that personally happened to me, which raised my awareness to this necessity. On February 22nd, Friday afternoon, I had received a call from my husband. He was on his way to pick up our daughter from school. He told me the school had a lockdown and they were not letting anyone get their children. He told me that the police were there with their dogs going in and around the school. He also said that some parents were saying that someone was in the school with a gun. I suddenly felt sick to my stomach and my heart sank. My worst fear became my reality. I was going through a real-life nightmare that no parent should have to go through. I work in North Philadelphia, and my daughter attends school in Southwest Philadelphia. I ride SEPTA, and on that particular day, SEPTA was running slow. My heart was pounding, and I was trying not to cry on the way to my daughter's school. I was praying all the way there that the Lord keep my daughter safe, my 9-year-old daughter. I kept thinking about the other schools across the country that have had school shootings. Sandy Hook Elementary School jumped into my head, and that made me panic even more. By the time I got to the school, the lockdown was over. I was able to talk to the principal. She told me that there wasn't a gun. I went home, hugged my daughter tight, and I cried. My daughter said, "Don't cry, Mom. I was brave." And that made me cry even more. The next day, I called the police district. The police told me they didn't find a gun, and the only thing they found was a bullet in the basement. So I decided to bring my concern to the Philadelphia School District. I wanted to speak with the superintendent, but the staff member of the Family and Community Engagement Office said I had to first go through chain of commands. I recounted to the staff member the events that led me to the school district, which caused me to choke up and cry. He forwarded my information to the school district's liaison. The liaison asked what my concern was and referred me to the school principal. The school principal told me she does not have the authority to issue installation of metal detectors. Since then, I have been emailing 3 different city councilmen, spoken with the school police sergeant, and the director of school operations. Now I'm reaching out to you, praying and hoping you will keep these elementary schools safe, not just for the school children, but the school staff as well. My concern is that it could have been a whole lot worse, and for that reason, elementary schools need to take the same safety precautions as high schools by implementing metal detectors. I do not feel safe having my child go to school in light of the recent events that happened at her school. It's only one step away from the school shootings that have been happening across the country. I will continue to have that uneasiness of sending my child to school until something is done. We need to do all we can to prevent this from coming to Philadelphia elementary schools. We cannot wait until after the fact to then do something. Let's do something now before it is too late. There's a big push for gun control, which is excellent, but what is also needed immediately is metal detectors. It is just as important and needed in elementary schools as it is in high schools. I read that Governor Tom Wolf gave the school district a $577,000 grant for the computer science program, and that's amazing. Of course, we want our children to have these excellent school programs and achieve highly academically, but how is that possible if there's a threat to their safety? And how will they ever reach high school status if we don't take care of this now? The children who were taken from their parents in the school shooting of Sandy Hook Elementary School will never go to high school. Their lives will
Zoe Rooney.
Hello, my name is Zoe Rooney, and I'm a parent and an educator here in the district. I'm here this evening to speak to you about 2 issues. The first is, again, the December 23rd, 2019 Professional Development Day, which falls on the Monday of winter break. The explanation for this day seems to be continually changing. The last information I received was that the PFT contract requires 28 hours of PD per year, which is true, but is not the 8 days previously asserted by the district at more than one board meeting. This explanation also mentioned Act 48 hours and ensuring there are enough in the PD schedule. As far as I know, the district is not required to provide all of our Act 48 hours during the school day, so this is by no means a justification for a PD day during winter break. The final explanation I received recently was that teachers are required to work 181 days per year. However, the 2019-2020 calendar, as posted on the website right now, lists 188 days of teacher attendance, plenty without this PD day. While this is just one day out of a larger calendar, I keep coming back to it because the district keeps talking about teacher recruitment and retention as priorities. Working conditions and quality of life are vital to retaining good teachers, and this is a prime example of the district choosing to create a calendar that feels disrespectful and uncaring. I'm asking you for either a complete, detailed, factual statement as to why that day is necessary with contractual language or other requirements referenced with actual numbers and citations, or for that day to be removed from the calendar. Second, I would like to address action item number 36, which is a proposed $1.8 million contract with Renaissance Learning for computer adaptive tests in ELA and math for students in grades 6 through 12. Our students are already over-tested, and our teachers are directed to continually analyze test data and come up with plans that we are often not given time to implement before the next round of tests. We need less mandated testing, not more, and we certainly do not need to be spending nearly $2 million on yet another assessment system. I teach 8th grade. My students already take the following assessments: 3 math benchmark tests per year, 3 ELA benchmark tests per year, the PSSA test in ELA, math, and science, curricular assessments such as quizzes and tests in all of their classes, and tests with their English teacher to determine their reading level every marking period. As part of blended learning, there are 3 adaptive computerized benchmarks per year in their math program and at least 3 in their reading program. In their presentation to the Student Achievement and Support Committee on March 14th, the district tried to differentiate these new tests from the existing benchmarks by saying that they are meant to be diagnostic and the benchmarks are meant to measure mastery of eligible content. However, the action item description makes it clear that they aren't really going to provide us with any new information beyond what we're already gathering from our many existing assessments. In a time when forward-thinking schools and districts are rolling back the amount of standardized testing, we should not be adding even more tests. Instead of throwing $2 million at this, spend it where we need it, on things that will actually support the goals in the action plan, on counselors, certified librarians, and safe, healthy facilities. Thank you.
Diane Kane.
I would just like to say for the record, 1, that I'm a senior at Science Leadership Academy High School, and 2, that we already submitted last month 370 petitions for against this metal detectors. Thank you.
805.
I wanted to speak today on action item, I thought 10, I think maybe the number's been changed, now it's 9. It was more vendor money for special education services to, it seemed to me when I read it, to reduce the lawsuits that come about as a result of not doing IEPs correctly. Maybe I have that wrong. But what struck me was that it was more money for a vendor, and I was wondering if the voices of the teachers, parents, and staff members that are directly involved in this were just talked to as you were making this decision to spend more money on a vendor. It then made me think about the many voices, advocates, and experts that came before you for ELL issues, where they not just brought problems before you, but solutions and an offer to help. Which then led me to think about the people behind me, these students who are coming before you and asking you to consider what they're asking you to consider. And it occurred to me that what we're looking at here today is community engagement. This is community engagement. And I was wondering how the board was going to rise to the occasion of meeting this community engagement, working with this community engagement, and using this community engagement as you continue to spend money on vendors and as you continue to pass policies. So the last thing I want to say is, this is what community engagement looks like. Thank you.
Excuse me, President Wilkerson. Can we address that issue? I mean, this was brought up earlier, and Christina Grant, sorry, I'm calling you out, on the diagnostic assessment, that it is something that
Dr. Haidt, you want to respond to that?
If we could get through the speakers and then we could come back and talk about that when we take the vote on it? Yes, thanks.
You can start. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anna Pern. I'm a mom in the School District of Philadelphia to 2 disabled children. My name is Anna Pern. I'm a parent. Tonight, the Board of Education is reviewing a proposal to increase KJR Consulting's contract to improve special education processes. When I asked the Board of Education to identify those processes, I was told that this contract was already addressed at the Facilities and Finance meeting. So I called KJR myself. Understanding now that this contract is about the training and support that needs to happen for central office staff, I wanted to identify some process issues that we do need to address as a district. We have process issues when the School District of Philadelphia enrollment data shows high rates of segregation for students with disabilities at some of the lowest performing schools. We have process issues where we say special education is a service, not a place, but a preschooler with mobility disability is unable to visit his neighborhood school and has one viable option that has an elevator. We have process issues when the PFT School District of Philadelphia collective bargaining agreement from 2013 to 2020, Article 18, Section E, paragraphs 11 through 17, describes how educational placements for students with mental, emotional, and educationally handicapped children can be addressed as a matter of work conditions in language that is not consistent with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, or Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. We have process issue when families hold meetings about extended school year services with their school team members and who don't receive basic information about what is even available to offer. And we are required by state code to meet by February 28th. We have a process issue when families can meet with school teams and someone from the Office of Specialized Services can override the team's decisions. Just last week, my son's IEP team agreed to add an ESY goal to address handwriting. They identified 2 programs that they would then follow up and share with me. But yesterday, I received a document stating the team does not believe he needs any support in writing as his writing is at grade level. This happens every year, and the only option is for families to pursue mediation or due process, which few families have the financial and emotional resources to pursue. We have process issues when in 2016 to 2017, only 51% of district disabled students were enrolled in higher ed or competitively employed. We have process issues when my son, who is transitioning to kindergarten, in that process, an individual said, we don't take kids with devices at my son's neighborhood school because he uses a speech generating device. And on the latest educational document, they labeled his school as non-high needs school, which no one can explain to me. So when families and students with disabilities are not at the table, our civil rights are framed as process problems and work environment issues. We're not your working conditions, we are human beings, and these are our civil rights. Thank you.
Is that it? I want to thank all the speakers thus far. It's now time to discuss and vote on this month's action items. We will then, at the conclusion of the votes, resume our speakers, hearing from our speakers. Action item 1 is for the adoption of proposed board policies 111, 123.3, 211, 217, 304, 617, 709, 804, 805, and 916. May I have a motion and a second to consider action item 1?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or any discussion? Ms. Fix Lopez?
Yeah, I have some comments I'd like to make about policy 805, which I wasn't. I'm sorry? Is that okay? Right? Yeah. Which I wasn't prepared to discuss tonight because I've made my position quite clear, I think, at past achievement meetings and the past board meeting. However, I think the point made of this, we have made a commitment to listening to the voice of the community in all the work that we've done. I think we've been very transparent about that. The student voice that we've heard tonight, to me, is a clear indicator that we need to really consider this policy. I think the biggest issue for me is the fact of thinking about this is not even the quote-unquote metal detector policy. We have a policy 817 that we're going to look at within the next year that is the use of scanning equipment to detect weapons policy. So part of me is struggling of why this is even embedded within policy 805. I know we're under this discussion due to the fact that we have the co-location of SLA and Franklin, right? Sorry, and Ben Franklin coming up this fall. But I don't feel that is the need to rush this into a policy. We clearly have student voice. We've heard publicly very little opposition. I'm sorry, we've heard very little promotion for the desire. Nobody's really come out to speak aside from several select parents on the need for metal detectors. The voice that we have heard is what metal detectors do to the culture, in particular, of the school climate, the lack of trust, and how that lack of trust feeds into the mental health of students and ultimately academic success. I'm just really struggling with this policy. I am a clear no on this policy. whether it's, you know, I don't know, you know, looking at the policy committee, is it actually looking at the two of these policies together, 805 and 817 together, reworking both of them simultaneously? I'm actually not sure why we're looking at them separately. Is it tabling this policy for now? I do understand the tricky situation with SLA and Ben Franklin, considering that education in general, we talk about meeting the students where they're at, the needs of individual students, tailoring the learning for the individual. And we heard the point from the student tonight about, you know, different schools have different school cultures, different school communities, and they need to have that ability to react to and respond to that culture of their school. SLA and Franklin will have to work something out, if this policy doesn't go through, which I would strongly recommend it doesn't tonight. My recommendation would be to table it, but I'll leave it at that.
Madam President.
I believe Ms. Frank wants to speak, and then I'll call on the others.
Thank you, President Wilkerson. So Policy 805 has been a hot topic lately at both action meetings and Student Achievement and Support Committee meetings. We first want to thank all of the students who have come to these meetings and spoken on this policy. Your voice is very important to us, and we appreciate your perspective. We've also been able to hear from more students about this issue during our school visits this past month. We've heard both sides. Some students feel that they are over-policed and that metal detectors are a sign of mistrust that reinforces the school-to-prison pipeline. However, it is equally important to share that we have heard from many students that feel the opposite. Students said they prefer to have metal detectors because it makes them feel safe and secure, especially with the high rate of gun violence that our city and country faces that cannot be ignored. I attend Northeast High School, and like most students, high school students in the district, walk through the metal detectors and put my bag through the X-ray scan every morning. Personally, knowing that I am safe in a place where I spend about 40 hours a week gives me a sense of security, but I know that not all students feel that way, and that is just as important. We hope board members will evaluate both sides before casting their vote and consider implications for both school safety and climate. Thank you.
Can I ask Julie and Alfredo a question? What percentage-wise, I know you don't have exact percentage, when you say that some feel safer because of it and others don't like it for the variety of reasons, do you have a sense of sort of, is there an overwhelming majority one way or the other?
So we brought this up at all of the past high school visits that we went to, and for both Strawberry Mansion and George Washington, they both said that we need metal detectors. We don't want them to be taken away.
So strongly in favor.
Yeah, there was no one at those meetings who said that we should not have metal detectors. Yeah.
Other schools, did you have any conversations?
The one other school was Mastery Gratz, and we didn't ask them.
I'll next call on Julia Danzy, Dr. Danzy. Thank you.
First, I want to thank the students and any teachers who were helpful in getting them involved in this for a great civics lesson. And it is my hope that this will not be your last involvement, no matter how the vote goes, because actually in a pluralistic society, it's nobody gets all of what they want if we're going to be able to function as a democracy. The other thing that I would like to say is that I want to apologize to Ben Ruiz, who spoke. If he went through several counselors and did not get help, shame on us, and that is something we need to improve on. As Dr. Haidt has said, we are absolutely committed, and we had been discussing this before, in terms of looking at how things are done, how things are administered. Every student should feel welcome when they walk into a school. Actually, from the principal down to maintenance, that personnel ought to be of such caliber that a kid feels welcome and feels like I can go and talk to you if I'm in trouble, and you're going to help me get to where I want to go. And we are committed to that. We understand, particularly in our high schools, you have adolescents. And as having one who has had to raise one, you know it's not how you say it, what you say sometimes, it's how you say it that flares up or not. And so we need to look at how we do things, because it's not, I've learned in life, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's how we present a plan. It's how we do the metal detectors. It's how you're welcome when you come in there. It's how they even ask, may I look into your book bag if they see something. The bottom line is, if in the schools where you feel these are like prison things, it's because it was never introduced to you correctly. It was never introduced as it is to keep outsides from coming in to harm you. Rather, it obviously was introduced as to keep you criminals from bringing in stuff into the schools. And that should have never been. The bottom line, we are charged with several things. One is academic improvement. The other is truly safety. Every parent wants not to hear, as this parent said, to hear an alarm about something is going down in their school, and now the fear is my child safe? We have to keep our kids safe, because you know what? No, it hasn't happened at this school or that school yet, but it doesn't say it won't. If you have been paying attention to Philadelphia, there is something toxic going on in our environment right now. Our young people who are obviously seeing the movies and the videos and are going like the wild, wild west with guns. The accessibility of guns in this, and the fact is, it is a deterrent we're talking about. You don't know whether or not if you remove that deterrent, things will change. And the bottom line too is, I will not point to one school or one community and say, or to one student and say, you're bad. To this school and community, you're good, and so you're exempt, and there are exceptions for you. That's not what it should be. We need to try to make all areas safe, and until we do, we need, unfortunately, to have the mechanisms that are available to us to try as much as possible to keep them safe. And so I, like that mother, while I would love you, I'm going to tell you like I used to tell mine, while I would love you to like me, my job, more importantly, is keeping you safe. And sometimes I've had said to mine, I can't let you go to this. I know you want to go because your friends are. But guess what? My job is to keep you safe.
Our next,
I just want to follow up.
our next speaker is Lee Huang, Mr. Huang.
And then I want to.
I just wanted to offer a contrarian opinion. Thank you, Dr. President Wilkerson. I just wanted to offer a contrarian opinion to what my fellow board member, Ms. Fix-Lopez, said in terms of this is a tricky issue. We should wait. And I think that it's important to say that no matter how this vote goes, there's still a lot of discussion to be had and a lot of work to be done. It is our job as the board to set policy and then to oversee the district and make sure that the execution of that policy leads to the outcomes that we want. We have heard loud and clear what those outcomes are, and so it's our job to set policy based on that and then to follow through from an oversight standpoint to make sure that the policies are implemented in a way at a district level and at an individual school level that represent those values. So I just wanted to say that.
Are there any other, Dr. McIver?
I want to follow up, and again, my opinion is on record from our last action meeting, so I don't want to revisit that. But I thought of something because the argument keeps being made that we're made to go through metal detectors at airports and at the ballpark and at amusement parks, and that is not an appropriate analogy because in all of those situations, these are strangers, and it's appropriate to have metal detectors. But schools are communities where we know the child every time they walk in the school. And I'm with Ms. Fix-Lopez in that if we can't undo this in a way, you know, what we are making a very big decision. And I think it was Zoe, the student, who said that it's up to the community, that community, to sit down and decide how do we want to structure our schools to make them safe. And I understand that there are schools that say we want the metal detectors, we need those, but I think I believe we put the cart before the horse.
Vice President Walker, did you indicate an interest to speak? Are there any other board members who wish to speak on?
I did not, but I will. First, I wanted to say I appreciate the community engagement. I mean, we're all tied in this together. And so it is more than moving and more than impacting to see the intellect, the passion, the activism of students and others in the community concerned about the impact of metal detectors or wands. But when I think about it, I also am moved and compelled by the statement the woman made about her child. And the thought of having to tell any person that their spouse, child, niece, brother, cousin, sister did not make it because we did not implement sufficient deterrence. But we have a chance to discuss deterrence. We have a chance to discuss criminalization. So I am in favor of having the metal detectors. And the reason I am is we get the chance to talk about this further. Plus, right now, most of the high schools which use metal detectors have them. Most of the high schools that we have metal detectors. To have a different policy for co-schools, for co-schools in one building, I think is unfair. We should have a one policy for all. And so my statement to Dr. Height, who will be charged to implement this policy, is that we must protect and we must respect. So we want you, if this policy is passed or adopted, to implement it in a way. And we also ask that with respect to policy 117, that we make sure that we have complete engagement, complete community and student voice in devising that policy.
Are there any other board members who wish to comment?
I wanted to
Dr. McGinley?
thank the students who spoke this
Can you put
evening.
your microphone?
I wanted to thank the students who spoke this evening, and particularly the students who... Okay, maybe I have a bad mic. No? Okay. Sorry. I wanted to just thank the students who spoke this evening, particularly the students who talked about their own experiences and facing mental health challenges in high school. And this is part of a broader discussion that we need to have. And a lot of the issues that are raised tonight, I see as falling under the subsequent policy around how this is implemented. The first time I walked into a high school in Philadelphia, having gone to high school here, having worked here, was Martin Luther King, and I happened to have been there when the day Martin Luther King opened with my father, and then I was back many years later and walked through the metal detectors, and I found it to be very troubling. But I will be voting in favor of this policy because I also, as a principal, in an environment of trust with students I knew, on 2 occasions, took loaded guns away from students. And I believe that we would have all been safer, all 1,100 students would have been safer had we had metal detectors in place at that time.
Ms. Zahia Hinton?
Yeah, I just want to take the opportunity to thank the mother who came in here, because you have an audience that is on the opposite side of this issue in terms of your position. I too have heard both sides of this issue, and while it's difficult, it is a sticky issue. It's prickly, right? People are emotional about it, both on the side of having the detectors versus not having them. I kind of feel a little bit like we have to take certainly a deeper dive, but on the other hand, I'm concerned as this mother with the safety of children. And how do we respond, and how do we react, and how do we prevent, if possible? Because sometimes even in implementing some of these strategies, there's always that possibility. You know, my hope is that even if the vote is not in favor of what the majority of the group here wants it to be, that there is still, and I know we've talked about it, the opportunity to talk about strategies to change how these security models are implemented, because I think that if in fact that may have happened first, we'd be in a different position now.
Comments from board members?
Just a point of clarification. So voting no doesn't mean we would strip away the metal detectors from schools that are there. Right? This is not about if you vote yes, all schools have it, high schools, and if you vote no, we take them all away. This is if you vote yes, it's imposed, and if you vote no, there is choice. And I think that's important to remember because, you know, well, I very much respect Ms. Danzy, and we co-chair, and we're, you know, our committee, and 99% of the time we're on the exact same page. When you say about removing the deterrent, the vote no is not to remove the deterrent. It's to give the school community the ability to analyze their school community, to know their school community, to make the decision that is best for that community. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on that.
Ms. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Yes, thank you. On action item 1, and board members, if you are voting yes as to all but one policy, please state that clearly so we can record it for the record. Ms. Danzy?
Yes.
Ms. Ahia Hinton?
Yes.
Ms. Fix Lopez?
No to 805, yes to the rest.
Mr. Huang?
I'm a yes to all.
Dr. McColgan?
Yes.
Dr. McGinley?
Yes.
Dr. McIver?
No to 805, yes to the rest.
Vice President Walker? Vice President Walker?
Yes to all.
Thank you. President Wilkerson?
Yes to all.
Okay, thank you. Just for the record, action item 1 passes as to all policies with the acknowledgement that there were 2 no votes as to policy 805. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next items are action items 2 through 4. May I have a motion and a second to consider action items 2 through 4?
Okay.
Everybody in this room, please stand up.
Okay, I'm calling the vote.
This board has claimed to say that they respect student voice. They don't. For every meeting, for 3 months, we have had students. Every meeting.
Yes.
Where is the dissenting voice?
Yes.
What have we heard today?
We're now going to call action items 2 through 4. May I have a motion and a second to consider action items 2 through 4?
So moved.
Is there a second? Ms. Rock, are there any questions on items 2 through 4?
We have had a conversation, a policy.
Ms. Rock, would you please call the roll?
Okay.
That is not a conversation.
On action items 2 through 4, we are continuing the board meeting. Ms. Danzy?
SRC did for 17 years. Students who go to school, who have to study, and are given assignments. They took it upon themselves for 3 months. You want to talk about data? There were students who went to every student in their school that was being impacted.
Ask that you...
That data is in your hand.
The vote,
You do not have to ask questions.
if there are no comments from
We do not recognize
the board...
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're done.
Thank you.
To the people in this room. To the people in this room. On May 14th, there is a hearing about the budget. On May 14th, in this building...
Please call the roll on items 2 through 4.
Ms. Dancy, on items 2 through 4?
They are going to give
Yes.
a presentation that will not
Thank you.
answer your
Ms.
questions.
Ahia Hinton?
What they have
Yes.
not talked about...
Ms. Fix Lopez?
What they will not talk about...
Ms. Fix Lopez?
Ms. Fix Lopez, on action items 2 through 4, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Huang?
About the public. We do not recognize the legitimacy of this board anymore.
That's right.
We do not recognize the legitimacy of this board anymore.
Mr. Wong, are you prepared to vote?
Under Dr. Hunt's watch, there were
On items 2 through 4?
There were 2 little girls that died.
Julian, that's not true. Julian, that's not true. That's not true. No, it's not. No, it is not. Okay. And Julian.
There was a young person that was assaulted.
Julian, this is not how we model discourse either. This is not how we model discourse. No, this is not how we model discourse. And you're a leader of students.
Last year in this district, there was an 8-year-old who was assaulted by a school police officer. Assaulted.
Mr. Wong, you're not prepared to vote?
Classroom and assaulted. We are not talking about conversations. We're not talking about officers being nice. We are talking about the
Mr.
everyday
Walker?
traumatization of students.
Yes.
That is
Mr.
what we are
McGinley?
talking about. This
Yes.
board has claimed
Dr.
that
MacGyver?
the students.
Yes.
This has been the most student
Ms.
engagement
McCulkin?
that we have had in this board.
Yes. Dr.
This has been the most
McCulkin.
student
And I'm voting
engagement
yes.
we have had in this board, and they voted no. Because they said that they care more about keeping kids safe when those same kids are defining the terms of their safety. I want you to be mindful of everybody in this section who sits close to them but will take up more space for the public. We are here. We are here to stay. We will not stop.
We don't want to have to remove.
We will not stop. There is 30
Our next item is item.
$30 million that gets spent every year on policing and security with absolutely no study.
On
There is no
items
assessment.
2 through
There is
4,
no cost-benefit
the board
analysis.
has
There is
passed
no
those items by a
evaluation.
vote of
We do
8 to
not
0.
recognize.
Mr. Huang has not
We do not
voted.
recognize your vote. We do not
We'll
recognize
Mr.
your
Terrell,
policy.
Mr.
We will
Terrell,
not stop. I am not Mr. Terrell to you.
I ask that you respect the policies and the practices of the board. We work hard to respect the voice of people who come and address our meeting. If you do not, I'm going to have to ask that you be removed from the room.
Ask me to be removed. Ask all of us to be removed.
Yeah.
And I fucking dare you. I dare you to come and remove us. I dare you. What are you here to do? To the officers in this room, you are here to protect and to serve. Students have told you what protecting and serving actually
I'd like to recess the meeting of the board. If I can have a motion to take a recess.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
This meeting is recessed.
We will not stop. And to the officials in this room,
Thank you.